Hi, my name's Audrey, and I'm part of the Girl Scouts of San Gorgonio. I'm a junior reporter here at Esri, interviewing the Chief Scientist, Don Wright. So, could you give me a little background of you?
Sure. Thank you, Audrey. So I have been with Esri for about 7 years. And Esri, a lot of people don't know that Esri stands for the Environmental Systems Research Institute. So we do a lot of scientific research here. And in my role as chief scientist, I help the software developers as well as people who are working in marketing and on environmental consulting firm types of projects to get connected with scientists to understand some of the science that they're trying to build the software for. And we specialize in a whole range of different sciences. There's ecology, conservation biology, geology and geophysics, agricultural science, hydrology, ocean science, sustainability science, social science. So I cover all of those different areas of expertise here at Esri, and then externally, I also represent Esri, the company, to the scientific community. So I do a lot of work at scientific conferences, presenting papers, working with agencies such as the National Science Foundation and the National Academy of Sciences. Then we have lots of really interesting research and development projects here, which I get to lead as well. So I really enjoy working here. I came to Esri from Oregon. I was a professor of geography and oceanography at Oregon State University. And we can go further back in my history, but I'll save that for the other questions.
So, our first question is, when did you discover that you wanted to become a scientist?
So it didn't take very long, and it happened while I was a Girl Scout. I grew up in the Hawaiian Islands, and so I really enjoyed spending a lot of time at the beach and swimming, climbing trees, just being out in nature. And so around the age of 8, I decided that I really wanted to know how all of these things worked. I wanted to know what was in the ocean. The fish were really fascinating to me, but I was even more fascinated with underwater volcanoes, especially since Hawaii is really a series of volcanoes that have breached the surface of the water and sit on top of the water surface. So I got really interested in rocks and decided then that I wanted to become a geologist of some sort, and a geologist who studies basically the ocean floor. So that I don't know what it was about being 8 years old, but that was just a really good year for me, and that's when I made the decision to become a scientist and become an ocean scientist.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I'm also here with Audrey at ESRI, also interviewing Don Wright. So, what advice do you have for young ladies going into a similar career path as you?
Well, I think the best advice I can give is to, for a lot of you, just keep doing what you're doing. A lot of young women are really passionate about science. They're passionate about nature, about conserving nature, about protecting it. And being in the Girl Scouts is one of the best things you can do, because I've heard of so many great activities that you're doing already that help you in science. You have to be very focused on details. You have to be very curious, ask questions about things, and those are all really good attributes of a scientist. And you were telling me about the courses that you're taking and how you're interested in mathematics and psychology, and you're going to follow those interests. So you are on a great path already. And so my advice is to keep doing, to really to follow your passion, and to there are going to be times when things get difficult, uh, and you might feel like giving up or this is too hard, but don't let that overtake you. Just keep going. And there are other all kinds of wonderful science or STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math programs for girls and boys. I wish that those programs existed when I was a little girl, but now there's so many of these. So I would say to get involved in as many of those types of activities as you can, and then you'll be in good stead for college. I think the road to being a scientist starts at your age, around the being in the 8th grade. You start being able to uh, really pursue real scientific projects. And then it goes on from there.
Thank you.
What was your most challenging part of your journey to becoming a scientist, and how did you overcome it?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I would say that things were pretty easy and exciting for me until I got to graduate school. So for many of us who are in science, we if you have a bachelor degree or your first degree in college, you can do all types of scientific projects, but you can't lead scientific projects. And I really wanted to get to the point where I could lead scientific projects, especially at sea as an oceanographer on research vessels. And so for that, I had to go and get a master's degree and a PhD. And when I was working on my master's degree, I had a really tough project, and I also had an advisor who was very, very busy. I was his first graduate student out of college, out of graduate school himself, and so he was really focused on just surviving as a faculty member and as a professor. And he really didn't give me much help on my project. I got to the end of my project, and I presented it, and he said, well, we're going to pass you on this project, but it doesn't look as though you have what it takes to be a scientist. And I think that you should think about going to law school or getting an MBA, Master of Business Administration. And we think that you should just give up on oceanography. So that, for me, that was still the most difficult period or point for me, because I was being told by an advisor to give up and to do something else. And I knew that I didn't want to do that. I really loved the topic. I loved the subject. And I'd worked really hard and put together a project that passed, even though I didn't get any help from that advisor. So I knew that I had some good ability. Of course, the rest is history, because I now do that type of science. I work at Esri as Chief Scientist. I've been on over 20 oceanographic expeditions, a few of them as a leader. And it's really interesting because years later, that advisor, this was like 20 years later, he and I crossed paths at a scientific meeting, and he saw what I was doing and how well I had done, and he actually apologized after all that time. First of all, I was really amazed that he remembered, but second, it was really nice that he apologized. So that was probably my biggest hurdle. There have been others, but.
Awesome, thank you.
So what was it about Esri that made you want to come work here?
Ooh, that's a great question, Caitlin. So Esri it's a company, but it's not a company. Let me explain that, because this is a for-profit company that makes software. And so you think, and I am someone who came from a university. I am someone who is often called an academic, as someone who likes books and likes freedom of expression, taking on whatever types of projects you want to, not being constrained by even having to make money as your primary reason for existence. A lot of people think about companies that way, but Esri is not like that. Esri has always attracted me as a company because I was first a customer of Esri. I learned how to use their software when I was in school, and then when I became a professor, I made sure that my students were using the software that this company makes, as well as other kinds of software. But Esri has always made very, very great mapping software. And as a company, Esri really cares about the environment. It's a really creative place. It's a place where people are kind to each other and supportive of each other. And these characteristics come out when you meet people from Esri. I'd met a lot of people from Esri at conferences I'd gone to, and they were really fun, the people and the conferences. And so when I finally had the opportunity to work here, I thought, well, this will be great. I will really be excited to be working at a place like this. And I work directly with the CEO, or the president of Esri. I actually report to him. And he He seems to be a nice man when you see him on stage or when you see him in interviews, and I'm so pleased to discover that he really is like that, and he really cares about conserving the world, making a contribution to the world. People using the software that we make here for all kinds of great things, anywhere from saving lives to understanding nature to making cities and governments more efficient. So I have not been disappointed.
Thank you.
Next question. What advice would you give any Girl Scout who may be interested in a career in science?
So if you're a Girl Scout and you're interested in a career in science, I would say to get as many science types of badges as you can. Go camping as often as possible within the Girl Scouts. And there are these related STEM activities: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Some of these activities, like for instance, I'm thinking as an oceanographer, there's the Ocean Institute at Dana Point, or the Dana Point, California, or the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. And those two organizations have all kinds of interesting activities or programs for girls and boys interested in science. And I think they often welcome Girl Scout troops or Boy Scout troops or other types of groups to come and do these activities. You can get to go on field trips, and you identify things, and you do all kinds of neat science projects. So my advice is to do as many of those things as possible, and then to also think about where you would like to go to school now. You're in the 8th grade, and you may be thinking about what you'd like to do, in what field of science you'd like to enter. And there's so much wonderful information on the internet that you can be thinking now about where you would like to go to school, and even identifying people, scientists, who would be willing to talk to you about what they do. And that all of that gives you a nice advantage when you're finally ready to go to college or start a scientific career.
So being a woman working in a highly male-domained kind of area of science, do you ever feel like there's more stress on you to be more successful?
That is a very good and interesting question. For the most part, no. It's sort of a yes and a no, because I've grown up as a person and as a scientist just enjoying what I've been doing, and trying to do it to the best of my ability, and not even thinking about whether I'm the only woman or the only person of color or any of those things. But every once in a while, you're reminded that you are. Like I will be in a meeting, and I'll just sit back and look around at who's in the meeting room, and then realize that I'm the only woman, or I'm the only African American, or I'm the only geologist in a room full of biologists. All of these things that you realize that you're the only one. And every once in a while, I feel the pressure to succeed because I'm a woman. And this has been the case especially since I've done a lot of work in the field in terms of being out and being out of doors, and not just doing my science in a laboratory, but especially being on a research vessel. I've been on, as I mentioned before, about 20 oceanographic expeditions, and you're out on a ship for about a month at a time, very male-dominated environment, often working with heavy equipment, and around people who don't think that women should be out there. And so when I have been out in the field doing my scientific research, I have really felt the pressure to do well and to succeed and to pull my weight and to not be shown to be weak. That's for sure. Also now, especially since Me Too and some of these societal issues that have come to the fore, we hear about things on the news. I do feel it's not a pressure, but it's like a wonderful new responsibility to do well. And Here at Esri, we have around 20 or 21 directors of the company. My position as chief scientist is a director position, and so out of the 21 of these positions, 3 of us are women, and I feel very proud about that, but also a nice responsibility to encourage women in the company. I know the women, a lot of women in our company look up to the 3 of us and want to be like us, or want to get to our level in the company one day. And I think all 3 of us are really very, very focused on helping people up, and also encouraging the young men in our company as well. So I think it's a good kind of pressure. Good question.
Thank you.
What was the best part of your journey to becoming a scientist?
I think the best part of my journey to becoming a scientist was actually doing the science outside. So, again, as an oceanographer, I have loved going to sea on ships, and I've loved the freedom and the adventure, and I've seen all kinds of amazing things. We were just talking about how I had a chance to go to the bottom of the ocean to dive to a depth of around 1.5 miles in a submersible. That was definitely the best part. The first time I was able to do a dive in the Alvin submersible, that's still a highlight, because we talked about outer space. That was diving into inner space, and the things that I saw were just amazing. So that's definitely been the best part, is doing what we call field work.
So we were talking about you being a Girl Scout. Was there something in particular that you enjoyed doing as a Girl Scout?
Yes, I enjoyed camping. So we had a really small troop, and this was on Maui, Hawaii. We were talking about how it was a brownie, and then I think the first time we went camping, I think I was a cadet, like both of you are, and we had our first camping trip, and I really loved that. We went up to, we were on the slopes of the Haleakala volcano, and I think it was camping for just a couple of days. And then, so that really made a big impression on me. The other thing that I liked was my troop leader. She was really fun and really easygoing, and every year we had to march in the county parade, and we were always the worst people marching in the parade. We were out of step. We were looking at everything else, waving at people. We weren't doing what we were supposed to do, but in a way, it was so much fun. And she was so easy. It's like, just have fun, girls. It's important that you're in the parade. You're behind this great float in front of you, and then there are these horses behind you. Just enjoy the experience. And so it didn't matter to her that we didn't march perfectly, just that we had fun. And for some reason, that made a big impression on me. So I really enjoyed that.
Wow, thank you so much.